What is going on, guys? My name is Noah. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to talk about dealing with anhedonia, or low-grade chronic depression after severe clinical depression. It's a real bitch, and it's something I unfortunately know all too well. Today's topic in question was brought to you guys, I almost should just say brought to me, by an incredible Patreon supporter named Josh Bradbury. Josh is my #1 supporter at the moment on Patreon. I'm very grateful to him and all my supporters on Patreon for helping me supplement the non-advertiser friendly quality of this channel according to Google's algorithm. So you guys are helping me on the back end. You're making this channel possible along with everyone else who views, likes, comments, supports in any way, shape, or form. Thank you to my patrons. Thank you just to everyone here on YouTube. You guys mean a lot to me. And one of Josh's reward tiers is that he gets to choose a topic of a video. And we're going to go ahead and talk about that. I'm going to read you what he said because I really like the way he worded it, and it was all too familiar. I'll dive in a little bit into my experience with clinical depression, then trying to come out and dealing with that grief of expectation versus reality. And then I'll give some potential solutions, or at least share some thoughts that might offer some hope to Josh, who I know is watching, and or anyone who might be dealing with that weird low-grade chronic depression, especially on the heels of a very severe episode. So Josh says, can you speak a little bit about being stuck in an anhedonic state? I feel less severe acute pain, but just feel an empty boredom that I can't fix even by doing something. I can go to the gym, but get no endorphins. This purgatory of numbness and apathy, where I can look good when I need to for people, but still can't really enjoy anything. Maybe you went through something similar. Yeah, I did, Josh, and you know, beyond anything, I suppose it's fair just to start by saying, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you're going through this. I know it's uncomfortable. They call it negative happiness, so you're less depressed, and maybe some moments, stretches, minutes, hours, even if you get lucky days, you're like, maybe I feel okay, and that's a really exciting thing, but it can be fleeting while you're trying to get your brain back online, and it's unreal how long it takes. So some people naturally are just anhedonic, if I said that right. Some people just ride kind of low. But Josh tells me from before that he wasn't that way, which I think speaks well to you, my friends, to look at that and understand you don't have a naturally depressed personality. You said that that's not just inherently who you are. And you had this very severe case of depression that you're slowly working out of, and now it's becoming more anhedonic in state, or in quality rather. So that's good. One thing I want to quickly speak on is my personal experience with coming out of depression, and that is that I thought that when it was over, I thought when depression was over, well, at least once I got to the space where I thought it could ever be over, because for a long time I was certain I was a goner, but I thought it would feel a certain way, and I put certain expectations on getting better. I put certain expectations on how it would look, feel, behave, and most of it was based upon how I remember life to be prior to getting depressed. And I found this, looking back, I find this type of thinking risky because something that a lot of us struggle with, and I can make a separate video on this, is that, you have to let go of who you were before your depression. Not let go of like all the qualities that made you you, but you have to let go of the expectation of your new life. And you cannot hold yourself to the standard, especially because we look back with rose-colored glasses of how perfect or great you thought your life was before you were depressed. And that's what I did. I put that expectations of old me, and I absolutely moved it to when I wouldn't be depressed. And so when I came out of my severe depression, and I still felt quite bad, quite often, just low grade compared to the intensity of the worst parts of the depression, I was so angry. I mean, very angry and disappointed. And like, this is it? Like, I'm just less depressed, or I'd feel better for a day or two, a week or two, and then I would slip really hard back. And I was like, damn. And it was a really tough pill to swallow. So you're in good company, and I think that was risky of me to feel that way. I think that way. Not feel that way. Can't control how you feel. Or think, for that matter, but it set me up for something. So what I would suggest you do, Josh, is, and anyone else dealing with this, is clear your mind of your expectations and you focus on the task at hand. So one thing I would say is that, this does not dictate your whole future. It's a common thing Some brains take longer to fully rewire, and it's so important. It's so very important. I know I belabor this, but to stay completely committed and lost in your structure, whether it be going to therapy, reaching out for support, self-care up the wazoo, from your lifestyle to your sleep habits to your supplements to your volunteer work. It's really helpful to work with other people. All these things need to remain in check when you're in this anhedonic state. What your brain wants you to do is do nothing. You just want to sit there and do nothing because most things don't feel good, so you have a lot of faking it to do what you need versus what you think you want. So I remember when I was in this state, I feel like my structure doubled down. I feel like my routines doubled down. And I had to just trust people that had gone before me, people like Douglas Block, other role models that I have. I had to trust that they were right, and then I needed to follow the program and continue to control the things I can. Now, beyond saying something like that, which I suppose you already know, Josh, you're a smart guy. We have spoken one-on-one via FaceTime. Apart from that, something that might help you, because it helped me, and it was suggested to me very specifically during this phase where I was like, I'm less depressed, I'm not severe, but will life ever get better? Mood journaling. I've mentioned this before, and I think it's worth mentioning again. When I couldn't tell if I was getting better, or I started to think that I was stalling, especially as the days turned into weeks to months to the longer time frames, it was very tough to discern what was going on. And because I had a more depressive outlook at the time, I tend to feel like I wasn't getting better in general. I just had this feeling. And so I had a counselor I was seeing strongly recommend I mood journal every single day. And I did a mood journal in this sort of point scale. Do whatever might make you happy, but this is what I did. So my mood journaling went from 1, which was hospitalized, acutely, dangerously suicidal. You're essentially never out of 1 unless you're in the hospital, or not to sound morbid or insensitive, but you're ready to jump. You're that bad. It's unbearably bad. Not the kind of unbearably that you just bear anyway. It's at the brink. That's a 1. A 10 is mania. A 10's unachievable naturally. No one's ever a 10 on this scale that I'm talking about. You'd have to be on all kinds of perfect drugs to ever be at a 10. And a 5 is neutral. It's not bad, it's not good, it's sort of whatever. Not experiencing a ton of pleasure, certainly not experiencing a ton of pain. You're just sort of going. I used to remember hearing this from my counselor, like, wow, 5 sounds shitty. He's like, no. 5, you'd be lucky to hit your 5s when you've been coming out of anhedonia or severe depression. And then you can look at 6 being like the goal. Live between like a 4.5, 6, something like that. And be really careful when you slip below a 4. So work with that as you may. But the point is having a mood journal that you're tapping into every single day really helps you over a longer period of time identify how you're actually doing beyond your pessimism, beyond your pain, beyond your frustrations with the process and the lengthy time that you've been under duress. So I remember he would have me write my lowest point of the day. So at that point, my lowest points were like 3.5s, maybe 4, because I would do it in halves. My highest point of the day, I'd be lucky early on after my severe depression to get to like a 4.5, maybe 5. And then I would do my own average. I would just add those 2 and divide by 2. So that would be my average. And then I'd write a quick paragraph on how my day went. Speaking on the good points and the bad, really quick. I committed to this because he said it would really help. And I did this for like 2 or 3 months. And it was really, really cool to see that in spite of myself, unbeknownst, because I didn't go looking back, he had me tally month to month what my averages were, from my highest to my lowest. And of course I was calculating my average on a daily basis. And to my absolute surprise, I actually was slightly noticing improvement. I mean, I couldn't tell on a day-to-day basis, but I was marking different things for my mood scale. I was slightly moving up. So let's say my first month of mood journaling, I was like averaging a 3.7, something like that. And then I was averaging a 4.1, and then a 4.3. Now these are small, but it's powerful, it's tangible. and it's quantifiable. And so I don't know if you're analytical like that. I don't know if any of you guys are, but for me, that really gave me a lot of hope. Because if someone had just asked me, do you think you're doing better? My go-to response was no. A lot of people who actually are doing better don't like to be told they're doing better because it feels like it's discrediting the fact that you're faking it a lot, for one, and two, you're still hurting. So sure, you're doing better, but you're still hurting. So it's like you don't want anyone thinking you're really good because you're not, On a total side note, being able to even fake it is a really good sign. It shows improvement. But that is my biggest suggestion to you, Josh, when it comes to dealing with this anhedonic state, this feeling of low-grade chronic depression, anxiety, and just the inability to feel pleasure. Don't stop doing activities that were once previously pleasurable just because you don't feel pleasure. You want to continue to poke and prod that bear, that pleasure system, those pleasure pathways in your brain, even if it's a little heartbreaking that you're not feeling the things you used to feel. Double down on your structure. You're going to emotionally and mentally give up so many times in this battle. You've survived 100% of your hard days. You're going to survive the next 100. I know it. So make sure that you're still controlling the things you can and tidy up those loose ends if you can. And then mood journal. I mean, if you're desperate, I was, mood journal. It's not that hard. You find a rhythm. I used to do it on my laptop. The highest I felt, the lowest I felt, the average, and then quick little tidbit about my day. You might surprise yourself. That's all I got for you. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that was helpful. If I seem a bit subdued, it's because I'm sick and I have a sore throat and body aches. I don't think I'm feverish, but I'm definitely sick. And yeah, so I tend to have a little more enthusiasm. But I really feel for this topic. That's a tough one. That life after clinical depression. Oh, and I guess rounding about to my very first thing I said, keep expectations in check. Do not constantly compare yourself to old Josh. Figure out who new Josh is, what your new normal is going to be. The bright spots of your past will show up, but you cannot hold yourself to such rigid standards if you happen to be doing that. And be brave. And to anyone else who's suffering, I am very sorry that you are suffering. It's not fair. It's some bullshit. But you got to be a champion for yourself. You really do. And you'll get through it. My name is Noah. Thank you again to my patrons. Thank you again to everyone on YouTube supporting me. Leave your comments below if you have any great ideas on the topic of anhedonia, life after the severe part of depression, the double depression aspect of it all. I love learning from you. All of us stand to benefit from your intellectual property if you're willing to just put your hands to the keyboard and share it. The participation of this community is amazing, and I don't want it to stop. The buck doesn't stop with me. I just happen to have gotten lucky and had this community form around me, but I'm simply a member of who just tends to initiate the conversation. But I learned so much from you guys. I don't know if I'm making sense anymore. I hope something came through. In that, because I'm definitely just like, but yeah. Okay. Here's to a good November. Later, guys.